Well, what will we do without technology? We are here on an ICT Future Forum, and technology nowadays is not working without computers. And the core of the computers, we've got some chips, some basic technology, and that's like INFINEON. And I would like to call on stage now Girish Kamala from INFINEON Automotive. Give him a hand. And while he is coming up, I did some research, Girish, and I saw a YouTube video of yours, and you were talking 2018 after the car expo in Delhi. And he was sort of concerned, everybody, there was a big buzz of the big OEMs and big automotive deliveries, tier ones, and they were all talking about electrifying their fleet. And you asked the question, is that only PowerPoint bullshitting? Or is it a true effort towards electricity and electrifying automotive transport? So I'm really curious what you found out in these last 2 years. And keeping in mind, just at the beginning of the month, Tesla was evaluated bigger or higher than Volkswagen and Mercedes together. So give Girish a hand. We're going to talk about electrifying through INFINEON. Give him a hand.
Thank you, Jan. So, just to answer your question, what's changed in the last 2 years? I guess in India, not much. That's okay, that's all right. Okay, what's changed in India? Probably not much. Yes, there have been more PPTs, but if you really see on the ground, nothing has really changed. We had conferences on electromobility and EVs after the Honorable Minister announced that by 2030 we will be all electric. And we had conferences every 2 weeks, and I guess we would be meeting the same crowd, the same people, the same speakers, with the same presentations with a different date. But nothing's really changed. If you really look at what's really happened in India today, actually electric vehicles, the pure electric vehicles haven't really changed. There are about 30, 40,000 a year. What you really see is a lot of the e-rickshaws, which is the unorganized sector, close to 500,000 of them, with about maybe 200 to 300 manufacturers supplying them in India, unregulated, very, very inefficient, using still lead-acid batteries, and, I shouldn't use the word, stealing power off the power lines where you just put a hook on there and then do them. So really, no, nothing much has changed. A lot of talk, and that is something what I wanted to present here today is we've actually taken certain initiatives on our own, because it's also not just about technology, it's also about building the ecosystem and building things that the end user actually really wants. If I ask everybody here, how many of you would buy an electric vehicle as your primary vehicle, not your secondary vehicle? Could I just see just 3 or 4? Because there are a lot of challenges which have to be addressed before we actually decide to go ahead and get an electric vehicle. Electric two-wheeler, surely, yes, maybe. But a passenger vehicle, I think a lot of us are not very sure. It's because so many things that come to your mind. Even though we are using our vehicles to commute maybe 10, 15 kilometers a day, we always want to buy that insurance when we go on that long trip for 300 kilometers. And I don't want to go out somewhere and have to wait for 8 hours for my car to get charged before I can start to use them. And these are certain things which put a lot of doubt in our minds for us not to be able to use them. But again, things are changing. There is a lot of people putting their minds into it. There's a lot of people talking about battery swap models. I was at Ola a couple of weeks back. They're talking about this, implementing it. But, in the end, very honestly, in a country like India where we have a lot of other necessities that we have to fulfill, expecting that the government is going to subsidize us to do a lot of these things is really unfounded. I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be very difficult. So, sorry I talked a lot about the other stuff rather than let me get to my presentation. But I'll keep this brief, and then we can basically, have more discussion of what we can actually bring to the table and assist a lot of you. I represent INFINEON Technologies. We are a global semiconductor manufacturer based out of Munich. So Bavaria again comes in, something here. And what we do is we are basically the basic building blocks of all the electronics for your e-mobility solutions. So I took this off Wikipedia. I was just searching when Jose called me and said, hey, you talk about sustainable mobility. What is sustainable mobility? In just very simplified terms, it is basically getting a mode of clean transportation and getting rid of the dirty traffic. Okay? How do you basically make this economical, efficient, so that people would start to use, so it would basically become part of our life for the long run. Okay? There's a lot of things on here. It's on Wikipedia, so it's nothing that I generated. Yeah, it's something which I took it from there. And this is what was defined by the European Union. And if you see, a lot of the activities that are happening out of Europe, which is something which is much different. And I'll tell you a very, very simple reason. For example, for the US, things are so far off from one another. So having a lot of these mass transportation isn't going to work. So there has to be different solutions. And in Europe, yes. And also, if you see, it is also the mindset of the people. A lot of people would prefer to use public transportation, would like to, commute by trains, and all always wanting to go and, fly, which is something that has not really happened even in countries like India. And I give you an example of myself. My office is located 50 meters from the entrance to the metro station. But I hardly use metro twice or thrice a year, because the challenge is, how do I get home once I get to my destination? And that's, I think, where we had the earlier presenters talk about. And I think if you guys are able to implement this solution and get acceptability amongst people, that'll be something that will really help all of us. And some people, die-hard guys like me, also would start to use. So why do we see a need? And I think Jan presented in his initial presentation what it was. I won't take a lot of time here. Basically, demographic and social change, urbanization. You see certain studies which say that there is an increasing trend, or ever-increasing trend, of people all moving from rural and semi-rural areas into the cities. And this is increasing day by day, putting a lot of pressure on the infrastructure, the resources in the cities, and which becomes very difficult to manage. And hence, you have so many more people who have to commute from A to B, and which becomes a very difficult task for a city even like Bangalore, because when urban planners were deciding, they never probably expected this many people would actually be in the city commuting from one to other for their work or for anything else. And a lot of you people in Bangalore would also notice that Saturdays are probably the worst days to commute anywhere in the city, because you also have a lot of people commuting to work, and you also have a lot of other pleasure riders also on the roads. Yes, so that is one, urbanization. Then, with so many more cars, so many more vehicles on the road, it also becomes very difficult in terms of the utilization of, renewable resources, fossil fuels, and also in terms of, the resource scarcity. So what is it that INFINEON actually does? We basically supply the basic electronic components, which not only go into e-bikes, not only go into e-autos, e-rickshaws, but all the way up to, hybrids, electric, battery electric vehicles, all the way up to the full trains, also the metro trains, and also the high-speed trains. And what are three things that we believe in? For example, one is making the mobility cleaner. Secondly is autonomous driving. Because what we believe going forward, that people really want to, with the commutes getting longer, people really would like to spend more time doing other work than actually working and than actually paying attention to the roads. Also probably with this, with machines, probably make the travel much more safer. In India, I know that the Honorable Minister, Mr. Gadkari, has definitely told us that autonomous vehicles and driverless cars are not going to happen. because his challenge is how do we employ so many people to drive. We need employment for so many people, and if you take away that portion of employment, it's difficult. But rest of the world, yes, we've tried and tested. And we also as an organization have license in the state of Nevada in the US, where we actually run these autonomous vehicles. What is our need for this is basically come up with technologies, come up with electronics which make them safer, more efficient, and try and bring these solutions faster to the market. Because if we are relying on requirements and specifications that we get from an OEM or a tier 1, it takes a lot of time for us to develop them. So it is something that we want to get into so that we can actually develop these solutions. And why do we want to get into electric vehicles? What's in it for everybody? If you look at it here, look at where the requirements, a lot of this is also driven by regulations. And because of regulations driving, which means that the CO2 grams per kilometer have to get reduced. As per EU in 2021, it's got to be 95, and it's currently 125 grams. This drop of almost 20%, guys, is not easy. I have worked in developing powertrains, and it's not an easy job to get a 20% reduction, let alone a few percent reduction on our internal combustion engines. And with diesel becoming the dirty fuel, which has also put a lot of pressure on the industry to come up with solutions. And what is driving here? The regulations in turn drive the TEFE standards, which is the fleet standards in terms of reduction, and because of which a lot of the OEMs are actually forced to go into and develop electric solutions. And without going into battery electric vehicles with just hybrids, we are not going to be able to achieve what we need, and hence there is a lot of requirement. And Jan, you said, Tesla, that's why is one of the main reasons why is actually valued much higher than a Huawei or even including the a Daimler or any of the other organizations. And this is what is driving. And actually, if you read globally, there are about 4 million battery-powered electric vehicles, 1 million in the US, about 1 million in Europe, Korea, and Japan. India is still very small. We've had about 30,000 or 35,000 vehicles on the road today. And hopefully, with a lot of these sessions and people really getting knowledge of how they can actually contribute to a better society, I think we would see a lot more of these coming on. And we also request you to buy because our business grows. So what are the things that you need in order to enhance your e-mobility? It's not just about creating electric vehicles. You need electronics and technology for automated driving, connectivity. Today, none of us want to leave our homes without our phones. A few years back, we always used a paper map to go from A to B or ask people on the side of the roads of where to go. But today, none of us, we feel lost, if we don't have our phones. And that's something we do. And for all of this, with all the transaction we do, we essentially need advanced security because, you've seen what happened with the hacking of the cars, the Jeep in the US, where people could actually remotely control a lot of the functions in your vehicle. So this is all nice, right? We are a technology company, so I got to show you something that we are contributing to in the future. For example, one of the things is the Hyperloop, also what Indian government is talking about from Pune to Mumbai. And this would reduce your commute time significantly. And as an example, yesterday, the first time in about 23 years, I actually took a train from Chennai to Bangalore. I had never tried that because last 2 times my flight was delayed by an hour and a half. But I was really surprised this time. I actually made it on time. It left on the dot at 5:30 and I was here 15 minutes early. And I don't have to take the 2-hour ride from the airport home either, so it's pretty helpful. Other one we're talking of is using gas turbine supersonic planes. And thirdly, the high-powered, again, the NASA engines. Okay, so these are some of the things that INFINEON is actually associated with. We are actually working with these guys in terms of helping them develop these technologies. So on the other front, what does INFINEON actually bring for you guys locally? What we have set up is, and then I will just show you a short video. We have set up a center of competence for 2-wheelers and 3-wheeler development of electronics. So if any of you, we have actually developed certain, can you just play the video? Yeah, you can play it, yeah. We've actually developed a few basic proof of concepts. We are not into the business of producing ECUs or the electronics. Yep, go ahead. We're really developing the proof of concepts. And this is something that we can help work with you to help develop. We are not going to develop the full solution, but this is something that we can work with you guys and at least give you a start. You know, you don't have to start from scratch. So this is what we can help you guys with. We've actually developed some solutions which are proof of concepts, which if you want, we're willing to share with you, and which you can then further take to develop. So Yan, from last time at least, it's no longer PPT. I actually have something that moves on the screen. Thank you.
Yes, it's good to see that the big shots are moving. What would we do without semiconductors? We wouldn't move anywhere. So ICT always is based on technology, and it's good to see that people like you, Girish, from INFINEON, are opening up your doors and inviting the community to develop with you together.